All right, it is 6:30. Let me stop my share so you can just see me. Hi, my name is Regan Pafal. I am going to be teaching this webinar. Topic today is just kind of like a very basic introduction into Illustrator and what it is best used for. There will be files that we'll be referencing throughout the lecture and webinar that you are welcome to download and use as we go along, or download and use after the fact, reviewing this as a video later if you want to follow it along, because I'll go pretty fast just because we have an hour and it is being recorded. Please excuse the boxes in the background. I'm getting ready to move, so sad times, some good times. Anyway, let's take a closer look at Illustrator. And so the first thing that we really need to talk about with Illustrator is what are you using Illustrator for? So there's really kind of two big file types when it comes to images, and one of them we are fairly familiar with because it's the one we see all the time on the internet, and that's a raster file. So if we go into, let me open it up, go into Photoshop, we can see right here this picture of J. Jonah Jameson, and this is a raster file. And so what a raster file is anything that you're normally used to seeing on the internet, as in it is a set number of pixels. So it's 400 by 600, 900 by 900 by 1200. Your camera makes raster files. And one really easy way to tell a raster file away from a vector file is that when you zoom in, you start to see the appearance of pixels. And when you see these pixels, that's telling you that it's a raster file. So that's one of the disadvantages of this, is that it's going to be made out of pixels. But however, because it's made out of pixels, it's capable of having much more detail and much wider color information in it than what's going to be really possible in a vector file. So let's hop over to Illustrator, which is the vector program that Adobe has. So like you have Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom and all those other ones. Those are all raster editors. Again, editing pictures made up of a set number of pixels. Illustrator is for vector files. So let's open up Illustrator, which takes me a hot second. Adobe Illustrator and share. All right, so here is the same thing in Illustrator, and the basics of this one is now that no matter how much I zoom in on this image, except let me turn off that background, because that background image is a raster file. But no matter how much I zoom in here on J. Jonah's face, there's never going to be the appearance of pixels, because it's not made up of a set number of pixels. What it's made up of are points and lines that have assigned fills that allow me to make this basically infinitely resizable in either direction without a degradation of quality. But since it's made up of those little individual parts, the more detail I have, the less well this works. So, when I go into one of my selection tools and, I grab J. Jonah right here, let's do direct select so we can break it up. You can see right here that these are all the different lines and points that make up this image versus the raster version. So that's the big difference right now. The reasons why you would want to use raster over vector. Raster, you're going to use this for photographs, anything that needs high quality art level detail. Vectors, you're going to use if you're going to have to portray this image in a lot of different sizes, if you need to have it be very easy to change and customize. So like J. Jonah's face right here in Illustrator is very, very easy for me to change the color. It's like a single click, really. I select it and then I can change the color of it to whatever I want. To do that same thing in Photoshop is a significant amount of work, and it won't come out as well as doing it in the vector, because there's always the anti-aliasing and lining that's going on between areas of tone in there that will mess that up. So if I need to be able to change it a lot, or if I'm going to need to if I'm going to need to customize colors and things like that after the fact, vector is incredible because it's just so much easier and faster. And then its file size is also going to be significantly smaller, because the math that it takes to make up all these shapes is significantly less data than storing all the pixel information in a raster file. So unlike Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, you're usually going to start from scratch. So let's take a look at making images from scratch and then different techniques that are very important in Illustrator. So just go up to File, New, or whatever. If you're in the home screen, you just click Create New or whatever. It's pretty straightforward. You'll get the new document window. You'll have your recent ones, and then across the top, you'll have if you save your own templates, and then all these other kind of standard ones. You can go ahead and set the file name right off at the start. And you know what? Let's do this one as kind of a start of like, if we're going to make a COVID-19 hand washing poster. So why don't we label this one hand washing? And later when I save it, this hand washing title right here will be preloaded into the program. And let's go ahead and make it 11 by 17. So I've got my width right here as 11 and my height by 17. And if you're not in inches already, you can click this drop down right here and select whichever one tickles your fancy. So like pixels, if you're going to be outputting to the web. Points and picas are used a lot in graphic design. So if you're familiar with that kind of layout and sizing, this can be very useful. It's also very useful if you're doing a lot of text layout. Feet, if you're going all the way up there, and then so on. It's like the normal measurements that we kind of think of. I usually work in inches because it's easier. Now there's this thing called artboards, and we'll get to artboards in a little bit, but for now we'll just leave it at one artboard. Bleed. So this program is really designed for if you're also going to be doing a lot of printing. So bleed is the space around your image where the paper trimmer could cut when you're doing a print. So like, like when you see people print off like boxes and sometimes there's like a little white border or whatever around it, that's because they didn't have their image go out into their bleed. So if you're doing mass market printing, putting the bleed on here will kind of put a little border around here that tells you how far out your image needs to come before you have to start worrying about white border showing up instead of the color or the picture. For us, since we're going to be outputting to the internet or non-mass production printing, we'll just leave our bleed alone. Now, something that's fairly important is our advanced options. So in advanced options, this is where you're going to want to make a decision. And the decision is between RGB and CMYK. And the difference between these two is it's a very broad topic, and it's important. But we can kind of boil this down to that same thing that we were just talking about right here with bleed. If it's going to be on the computer, or if it's going to be a high-end like fine art prints, you're throwing it through one of those fancy, or like the printer at DoSpace, that big fat HP printer with the nice wide color gamut, go ahead and put it in RGB. It'll come out better that way. But if this is going to go out for mass market productions, let's say I was doing a brochure for the Jocelyn, I would do it in CMYK because that's the kind of printer that it's going to go through, and it will pre-set up my colors to work better with that kind of printer, because RGB has much darker darks and brighter whites than you usually can get out of CMYK printing. And then the color range and the colors that you can produce are different. So if you're going to be doing it on the computer, so if it's going to be shared on the internet, Facebook, Instagram, doesn't matter, RGB. And then mass market printing, you're going to do it in CMYK. Also, if you're going to do like screen toning or whatever, you can also do it in CMYK. Raster effects, so that's what we were just talking about over in Photoshop. So that's how dense our pixels are. Two really easy rules for you. If it's going to be printed, so if it's going to be made into a physical thing, 300 PPI. If it's CMYK, get away with 150. But like high-end prints, 300 PPI. If it's going on the internet, 72. It's that easy. High quality printing, screen, going on the internet. In our case, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at 300 PPI, just like if I wanted to print off a nice one later. We don't really care about preview mode, and we don't really care about the more settings. Don't worry about that stuff, and you'll just click create. So you'll get an empty document, and in our empty document, we have our workspace. And our workspace is a setup for how all of our stuff, basically our access to our tools. And mine probably looks different from yours for a couple of reasons. Let me go ahead and reset mine. So yours probably starts off looking something like Reset Essentials. Something like this, which is fairly basic. There's not a lot here, and it's not super useful. Adobe has started doing this thing where they hide a bunch of their tools for some reason in the basic essentials version. And the idea is to make it less cluttered and easier for people to get started. But when you go onto any tutorials or you're looking for tools, a bunch of stuff is just missing and it's very frustrating. So let's bring them all back. So right up here where it says essentials, and you know, let me make my mouse bigger for you guys so it's easier for you guys to see what's going on. As I'm going along through this, if you guys have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. I'm also going to reserve about 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the webinar for you guys to ask questions and ask for particular techniques. But if your question pertains to what's going on right now on the screen, I'll answer it then. So anyway, giant Chungus mouse. Right here where it says Essentials in the top right, we'll pick a different workspace and we're going to pick Essentials Classic. And you can pick any of these, by the way, and these are all just different layouts of the same tools and panels, really. Some get hidden, some get shown, that are set up for you to do one of those better. So we're gonna go into Essentials Classic, and let me reset mine so it looks like yours. It probably looks something like this. So this is our workspace. Across the top, we still have our menu bar. Underneath the menu bar, we have our options bar. And so this will be basically different ways that we can interact with whatever tool we have selected over here on the left. So the left right here is our toolbar. And in our toolbar, we have our foreground and background colors, our active colors. So like if I'm using a tool, these will affect the color that it's initially coming out. So the one that's a big solid block will be the fill. And then the one that looks like an outlined block is outline. And then you can pick different kind of preset ones right here. And same thing right here, you can return to the default by clicking on that. And you can flip them by clicking on the little arrow right there. So let's say I didn't want to do any fill, I would click the no fill, the one with the red arrow through it. So not red arrow, red line through it means nothing. So it means no. So toolbar, options bar for our tools, and then we have our panels over here. And our panels are just kind of a catch-all for either like more options for our tools, specialty stuff, and then also like layers, which is going to be an important concept in Illustrator. It's never too late for coffee. So let's change our workspace a little bit so it's a little bit easier for us. And this is something you'll customize on your own for yourself as well as you get better at the program. So there's two little double arrows right here. I'm gonna go ahead and click those to expand this out. And now I've got them all right here. You know what, I'm also gonna pull out my layer. So I'm gonna click on this layer tab down here in the bottom left, and I'm just gonna pull it off to the side, and I can either have it float on its own right here, or I can click and drag it over this edge, and when I see this blue line appears, it tells me that it will drop into there. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that just so I have my layers handy and easy for me to see. My mouse wanders around my legs because I'm moving the chat window for if you guys post any stuff in there because it covers things up. So I can make a new one of these active by just clicking on these different tabs. And so like I'm not gonna use my library, so I'm gonna right click on it and do close, and that tab can go away. Or like I have my asset export or artboards, you know, whichever one I want. And then just like with most things, if I mouse over a spot, I can extend or drop down things. One other thing to note that can be very confusing and irritating in Adobe programs is sometimes you would think that these panels would be already set up to have the most available options. Because like we have like the mini options across the top. Why wouldn't this be all of the options? Sometimes they're hidden. So like it's like stroke, I should have access to more control of my strokes. I'm gonna make stroke active. And if I click this little set of lines right here, I can do show options. And now I have all of my stroke options, which is like, why was this hidden, guys? But so keep that in mind. So like these little drop downs can have a lot more information in them. It's like a context menu for whatever you've got going. All right, so let's talk about where we can work. So this white block right here is called an artboard. Artboard is where I make drawings. Like this is where I could, you know, draw whatever I wanted, you know, draw in my stuff. And this is my space to make art. Now, if I have multiple layouts of the same thing, like I do with this Spider-Man thing, so like I have this big version for as if I'm printing an 18 by 24, and then I've got another version, which I use as like the internet version, which is this one down here, where it's much more condensed and easier and quicker to read. So like, yeah, I like, and then, you know, when you think about browsing stuff on the internet, this landscape orientation pops things out a little bit better. It fits under the screens as people are scrolling. versus this one where, they'd only see like half of it at a time. So this is where I have my print artboard and I have my internet artboard. So this is a way of accessing the same stuff in one file and then doing multiple layouts of it, which I can then export and save and change for whatever I need. So if I wanted to create a new artboard, I could come over here and I'll mouse over until I get the thing that kind of looks like a document edge with a crosshair on it, the artboard tool. And I can just click and drag to draw a new artboard. So here's my artboard 2. Notice over here in my panel, I've now got 2 artboards. And I can make them active to change the size. So like this one that I just drew in here is like this horrible random size. If I wanted to make it, like 5 inches by 5 inches, I can type in that 5 by 5 and make it a set size. In my case, I don't really want this artboard, so I can either make sure my artboard tool is active and this artboard is active and hit delete, or I could click the trash icon down in the bottom right for my artboard icon. Artboards. Let's take a look at layers. So layers, we're going to be coming back to continuously, and what layers are is whenever I make something in this program on my artboard, I'll get a new layer. And I have a way of hiding stuff and making it appear and disappear and locking it. And when we start tracing that hand, this is going to end up being very important, but it's a way of allowing me to select different elements of stuff that I've already drawn or made, and allows me to interact with them, move them, delete them, or change them, or whatever I need to do. Let's set up our workspace a little bit more. So I like to have rulers active. So you can come up to View and do Rulers and Show Rulers, or you can hit Command or Control R to make them appear, and you have your rulers now in appearance. This also gives you a way to quickly change between different measurement types. So if I right-click on my ruler, it allows me to change it to pixels or points or whatever I want to be working with at any given moment. So if I need to quickly change my units to see like, hey, what is this going to look like on the internet, I can just pop this over into, not points, pixels, and work with the size from there. Anyway, back to inches. Also related to this is I can click and drag down off of here lines that are guides. And what guides are a way of allowing me to make multiple elements that all line up with something. So let's say I have this square shape tool and I draw in this square. Notice how it's automatically snapping to that little pale blue line. So it will allow me to make automatic snapping. And then later, if I like make multiples of these, so if I hold down the Alt key, it allows me to duplicate stuff. Rectangle. Oh, it needs a fill, so I can click on it. There we go. I can hold down the Alt key and click and drag, and when I click and drag, it will automatically kind of snap onto that guide that I made, making it very easy for me to do quick layouts. And notice as I'm doing this, I'm getting these purple lines appearing. Those are smart guides. And so like I can click and drag over here, and even though I don't have one of these guides active, I can get it to snap to one of those smart guides, and it will help me do quick layouts. Just Command Zing all this stuff off of here, so it's easy. All right, so let's take a look at one more thing before we get going, which is if you ever do need to switch, like you pick the wrong color space, you can always come up to File, go to Color Mode, and you can switch between RGB and CMYK very quickly this way. So you can switch your color mode just with a real quick document color mode up here in File. So one of the basic things that you need to do in Illustrator is, ironically, bring in raster images. So how do we bring in raster images? We'll go up to File, and you go to Place. It's not open, it's not anything else. You want to do Place, and this will allow you to drop in whatever you're working on into your workspace. So in our case, let's go ahead and grab the thumbs up labeled image trace and drop that in there. Before I click on anything, I have a couple of check marks down here that can be very confusing. So I have this thing called link. So if I have link turned off, this image will be embedded in my Illustrator file. When I save my Illustrator file and move it around, it will stay with it, which what you kind of assume. Link, all link does is it tells Illustrator where this file is on my computer. And so if I move my Illustrator file or my hand file later, the link will get broken and it won't know where anything is anymore. But this can actually be a really big advantage, because if I have something linked and I change it in another program, it will automatically update itself in my new program. So let's say I modified this after I dropped it in Photoshop, it would update itself over here in Illustrator. In our case, we don't want to link it, so we won't link it. So we'll click place, and it gets preloaded onto your cursor like this. And you can see it says 1 of 1, so that's telling me I have one image in there. And I can click and drag to drop it in at whatever size I want. Or if I just click, it will put it in at its native size. Image trace. And so like that's how big it would be natively, which is just like way too big. So again, you can click and drag to make a custom size right off the bat. So it's like, about that big. Oops. And it's that easy to bring in raster files. Now it appears over here in my layers. And as long as I have one of my 2 select tools active, I can click on it and drag it around. And I have a little bounding box on there. So like you can see, I've got little anchor points on there that allow me to click and drag to transform it, just like what you would expect in any sort of raster editing program. And by the way, if you want to click and drag on one of these edges without distorting it, if you hold down the Shift key, you can move it proportionally and change it proportionally. And I can also always come up here to my magic option bar and change the size of it right here. So if I wanted to make this exactly 6 inches, I could type in 6 and it will resize it for me. Very, very useful. Or even more useful than that, let's say that it was some random horrible number like this 6.27, whatever, and I needed it to be 1/3 as big as that. Photoshop supports math equations. So if I type in divided by 3, so /3 and hit enter, it will divide that by 3 for me. Or like if I just wanted to make this 2 inches bigger or 2.5 inches bigger, I could put in plus 2.5 and it will make it 2.5 inches bigger for me and do all the math for me, which is cool. I like that Photoshop and Illustrator. Nicely done, Adobe. Because it didn't used to do that. Like putting equations in there was like a really nice quality of a life improvement. So let's say I wanted to change the color of this, or change the shape of it a little bit. I need to convert this into a vector, because right now it's just a set number of pixels and not those lines. So this is the tool that gets a lot of people in trouble in Illustrator because they'll over rely on it. But in this case, it's the tool to use. So when I have that image active, so either I've clicked here on the far right on my layer to select it, or I've got my select tool, and we'll go through these tools more in depth in a minute. If I have my select tool active and I click on what I want, so it's outlined right now in blue, or if I had a different layer color, it'd be like red, green, or whatever. To make it active, across the image, across the top in my options, I have the option for image trace. So I'll click on image trace. And what it will do is try to convert this into a vector. And so right now it's showing me the tracing result, which is pretty darn good. But I want to take a quick look at like the different settings in here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the image trace panel to open it up. I could also open this image trace panel by coming up to window and coming down to image trace. What this allows me to do is access additional controls for the image trace, converting a raster image into a vector. So I'm going to go ahead and click this button right here to open up advanced. And what I want to turn on right now is ignore white. Boink. And what this will do is all that empty space right here around the thumb, it will not turn into a shape. Otherwise, it was a shape that I could fill. And then it also allows me to choose these different methods in here. I can say I want more paths or less corners, more simplified. Unless you really get into this thing, there's not a lot of reason to not just pick one of these drop-down ones and call it good. So you're like, for this one, we've got a black and white logo. So black and white logo is probably what it automatically chose for the most part. Now, before I can start interacting with the different parts, I have to do something that isn't reversible later, which is click expand, which is expanded out into its different parts. So now, instead of being a raster image shape, it's now a vector shape. It's got multiple parts to it. So if I come over to my layers and I click this drop down caret guy, you can see that each one of these sections is a different part of it. And we can see that it added in some random stuff. So I'm going to click on this one. There's my thumb. So I want to keep that guy. Let's click the eyeball, see if anything disappears. Nope. All right, so let's get rid of you. Just going to click the trash icon. Click the eyeball on this one. That doesn't appear to be anything by. And this is part of the problem with image trace, is that sometimes it just makes stuff up. So there's the wrist, and that's nothing, and that's nothing. So let's just go ahead and delete those guys out. And probably what it is like a random pixel or whatever, or line or something that it picked up. And it's like, who knows what it is without digging into it. In our case, it's not important what it is. So let's go ahead and select that guy. So again, I can click to the right of it, or I can click the layer and just delete. So now I've got two shapes. I've got the wrist and I've got the thumbs up. So if the select active, if I click on this, it selects both of them right now. And that's because both of them are in what's called a group. And we can see it's labeled a group up here. It's a drop down within the layer. And so a group is where it's stuff that's supposed to stay together. So it's grouped together. So if I click and move it around or change the size of it, I don't have to select everything individually. It's a really convenient little way of doing things. Now, if I want to grab just one part of this, I need to either click over here and grab just that one part in my layer, or I can grab my direct select tool and click on what shape I want. So like if I want just the wrist, I can click on the wrist, or just the thumbs up and just the thumbs up. So let's say I wanted to make this hand green. I could then grab my direct select tool, click on the hand, or again, I could click over here to put that little blue dot there, and I can change the fill. So across the top, notice up here, I've got this black box for my fill. I can click the drop down, I can make it blue. Also, over here, if you've been watching, I've got this color guide over here. So if I have something active, I can always just click anywhere in here to change the color. And like I said before, if this like layout for the colors isn't your bag, you can always click this drop down and pick a different layout for your colors. Show options. There we go. And so, if I wanted it by RGB or if I wanted it by CMYK, this is something you can play with and look at later. And then colors that I use a lot get saved as these swatches, which are just ways of saving colors so I can turn them into a single button click. So let's say I wanted my hand green, and then I wanted my wrist red. I just click on each one using the direct select, the filled in arrow, to edit those individually. Now, more powerfully, I can get in there and really start editing the individual points. So if I zoom in, and let's say I wanted to change up this red, I could start changing the shape of it by interacting with these tiny little things called anchor points. I gotta click on it, there we go. In this case, there's a lot of anchor points in there, so we'd wanna simplify it. So edit, undo, move, undo. So we could go up to, where do they hide this stuff? Simplify, boink, and it will get rid of a bunch of those paths automatically for me, which is very nice. But it allows me to directly edit and change this shape, or just move this one part of it. Like if I wanted to start changing out this thumb, I could go in here and start moving these anchor points around to really start changing it. But what exactly are these anchor points? These anchor points are the core of the vector. This is called a path. And so this is the main thing that you'll do in Illustrator, is actually not necessarily image trace something and start playing with these paths, but create paths from scratch, either by tracing over something or just entirely from whole cloth, to make your shapes and designs. So I'm going to hit Command 0 or Control 0 to zoom out, which is a very nice way to zoom out. You can also always zoom in and out using the magnifying glass. It's pretty straightforward. Plus, you can click and drag to zoom in and out, or just clicking zooms in, or holding down the Option key turns it to zoom out. So anyway, Command 0 or Control 0 to fill my screen, and I'm going to select this group, and I'm going to delete this stuff out. Let's add in something that we could use to make that hand washing poster. Okay, so we'll go up to File, and we're going to come up to Place again. And we're going to place in tracing example.jpg. See its hands, nice. And we could click in template to kind of set up this thing where it's easier for us to trace, but I want to not do that so I can demonstrate some stuff. So I'm going to click place, and I'm going to click and drag to set about the size of it. And so I've got my hands right there, and this is where I'm going to be working. I'm going to trace this woman's hands and turn it into a hand washing poster. So right now, as I'm working on stuff, if I have my select tools active and I click, I can accidentally click and move this picture around. That's one of the things that that template thing would get rid of. And so if I don't want to accidentally interact with this background image, I want to do something called locking it. And so to the right of the eyeball on the layer, the thing that makes it reappear and disappear, there's an empty space. If I click on it, a little lock appears. And now no matter what I do, I can't directly interact with that part of a layer. Or I can do the whole layer if I've got multiple layers. So this is going to be very useful because we're about to start working directly over it to start tracing things. So if we move down our tool list, we've got our select tool for moving groups and for large groups of objects and things that are out of groups. We've got our direct select, which allows us to select things within groups and then parts of objects. We'll skip these two guys and we're going to go down to the pen tool. And if we click and hold on the pen tool, we see that there's actually a bunch of extra tools in here. And that's going to be true of any of these little caret on them. So like if something's missing, it's probably hiding in one of these other tool stacks. But we want the pen tool. So what the pen tool allows us to do is set an anchor point and then draw a line from that anchor point to another one that we set. So if I just click once, boink, I have a little blue dot. I click over here, I have another new blue dot. That is an anchor point and an anchor point. And if I continue to click around, it will start adding in a fill. So I've got green active right here, it's going to be green until I come back around and I mouse back over my last one. And notice how I get a circle on my cursor. That tells me I'll make a complete shape, and I can click there. Boop. And now I have a completed shape. So anchor points, paths. If you make a closed shape with anchor points and paths, if you make a closed shape, you get a shape. Now, if I wanted to change the colors of this, I would grab my select tool and I would click on my object. And now I've got access to its attributes up here. So I could shrink it with the same sizing stuff that we were looking at before. And I can also change the color of it, the same way that we were looking at changing colors the other time. Now, if I wanted to add an outline to this, that's where I would pick this next box. And so let's say I wanted to do a red outline. I get a very thin red outline on there by default. It's 1 pixel wide. So I'll click back on it to make it active. And right here where it says stroke, I can start increasing the size of it by just changing the size of the stroke. And so when it says 16 point, that's about equivalent to like 16 point font to give you an idea of scaling and ratio. Now, if I wanted to change where this stroke is, so right now it's centered on that line that I made with those anchor points, I would come over to my stroke panel and I could be like, hey, why don't you be on the inside of that? Or why don't you be on the outside of that? Or why don't you be middle? And you can also start changing your end caps. So instead of having like pointy corners, I could be like rounded corners or, chiseled corners. So it starts giving you extra control. And then if you wanted to, you can get fancy and start turning them into things like dashed lines. Just know that that's an option, but it's not something we're going to be messing with today. Let's delete that shape out by, just hit the delete key. And let's go back to our pen tool. And to make it easier to see what we're doing, I am going to change my fill to nothing. And I am going to change my outline to black. And why don't we go ahead and why don't we start with like a 5-point stroke. So I've got nothing from my drop down, the one with the red line, black, and 5. That gives me a line that looks like that. Pretty straightforward and easy. Now, let's say if I just wanted to make a line, I could also hit escape. And that allows me to start drawing new lines. All right, so let's trace these hands. So I'm going to hit Command or Control+, zooming me in. And then I'm going to change where I'm looking on my screen. I'm going to hold down the space bar on my keyboard and I get this hand. Now I can click and drag on here to kind of center the hands on the screen so it's easier for me to work with and see. When I release the space bar, it turns back to the pen tool. And let's do a quick trace. So I'm just going to click and click and click, and I'm just clicking at spots where I want to be able to come back and add a curve. The other thing I can do is if I click and hold while I'm doing this, I can start dragging out a curve from the beginning. So like there's that curve for the thumb, but it will, start curving my line unless I go through and start converting these anchor points to something else. So it might be easier for you guys just to do these clicks before getting fancy and doing some clicking and dragging. And notice how when I'm going around this, I'm literally just making an outline right now. I don't want to do any of the interior details yet. And that's because there's going to be an easier way, rather than tracing every single thing of this, sometimes multiple times, I can use another tool here in a minute to start breaking chunks of this guy out. Start breaking chunks of this guy out, which will make it easier for me to interact with it in a minute. And even with this tool active, I can always hit the space bar to move my stuff around. There's my little circle on my cursor, and I've got a completed shape. So let's say I did want to start adding those curves. How do I do that? I click and hold on the pen tool, and I get the anchor point tool. This one allows me to click on any one of these lines to start bending it, and it allows me to also click on any point to start getting access to the controls it has. So let's say for this guy, I would just kind of click and bend that out a little bit, click and bend that out a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. For this one where I've got that join, I want to click on the point itself and then drag out, and you'll notice how I get these two little handles. Ooh. I get these two little handles. So these handles allow me to affect just that one curve in relation to that point. In this case, I don't really need to do that. I'm just going to click and drag it out a little bit to give it a bend. Let's click and drag you out a little bit to give you just a little bit of a bend. And let's fix you right here. I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key, and I'm going to click on that point. And I'm going to grab this one handle. See how it kind of popped out of there? I'm going to drag it up just to kind of smooth that out a little bit. And you need to be clicked and dragged out. And this one can stay the same. Click and drag out. You get the idea. You don't necessarily need to watch me go through and do this whole thing. Like I go through and I'd clean up all these fingers, click and drag it out until I get like a nice appearance and shape. All right, so how do we go in and start adding in that detail? So let's go back to the pen tool. And I can, if I click on any of these points, it's unfortunately going to sometimes hotkey to the wrong things. I'm going to show you an easier way if you don't learn the hotkeys. If you just click off to the side, it'll allow you to come back in, and then you can mouse over that anchor point. Notice how I get that little purple text, so it's automatically snapping to that. So I'll click there. And I'm going to bring this line down to this part of the hand right there. Click, and up to here, and click. And then I'm going to hit the escape key, because right now it's still trying to draw more line, so escape. So now I've got what looks like that bar of soap, but I want to fill it in. Unfortunately, right now, it's just a line by itself, and then this is just right here. So I need to join these guys together. There's a tool for it, and it's really handy. So I'm going to go ahead and click right here. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click right here. So I've got both of them selected. Conversely, I could also grab my select tool and then click and drag over it like so. That will also select it. Just keep in mind if I've got a bunch of other junk in here, it will select that as well. So I can either grab it through up here, or I can be very careful with my select tool, just different ways of grabbing what I want to work with. So moving down this series of toolbars, I get one that looks like two circles with dots on it with that select tool called the Shape Builder tool. I'm going to click on that. And when I mouse over this, you see how it kind of turns gray. So that's telling me I can convert that into a shape. The Shape Builder tool will only work if it's a closed shape. So that's why when I was drawing this line, it was really important that I waited for the purple text coming up telling me that I was snapping onto that previous line. If I hadn't, if I was slightly short, this wouldn't work. So I'm going to click on the bar of soap. Boop. And now that bar of soap is its own shape. Go back to the selection tool. And if I click through these, you can see that this line is now its own thing. So I'm going to go ahead and select that line and delete it. Bye. And now I've got my hands and I've got my bar of soap. Notice how the bar of soap has its own outline versus the hands right here having its own outline. So this is a way where I don't have to continuously go back and retrace these parts. I only have to go in and trace in the stuff that's new. So let's go ahead and select that bar of soap. I'm going to come up here to my fill and I'll be like, make it orange. And just like that, it's orange. It's easy. So let's say I was going to add in this thumb. Let's go ahead and add in the thumb. I would grab Mr. Pen tool again. I'll click off to the side. I'll mouse over here. It says, you know, path or anchor. It doesn't really matter to me. I'll do anchor. So now I've got a line going up to that, knuckle, thumb tip, and just, ooh, I still have my fill on. Well, whatever. And now I've got that shape. Now I need to stop drawing a line, so I'll hit escape. And you know what, I'll go ahead and turn off the fill on that just to make it easier to see. And if I was going to make a finalized version of this drawing, I would go back in with that anchor point tool and start adding in, you know, curves to make it look good. But you know, for us, we don't need to do that. So I'll go ahead and select the hands again. So I've got the new path that I drew and the hands selected. So again, I'm just going to click on the blue, hold down the shift key and click to make that blue active. And I come down to shape builder and I'm like, make it a shape. And now they're their own things, which is really handy and neat. So rather than having to retrace everything constantly, that's one quick and easy way to do it. Now, if we're adding in these details, I'll change it up a little bit. So I'm going to click on my drawing tool, my pen tool. I don't want that one, pen tool. And I'll be like, here to here, please. I'm going to hit escape and I'll be like, here to here please. Hit escape and I'll be like, from here to here, please, and hit escape. And now these don't need to be shapes. They can stay as an overlaying line. So you like, right here's a finger, right there's a finger, right there's a finger. So I'll go ahead and select all of them though. So I'm going to hold down click on one, then hold down the shift key and start selecting the rest of them. And then I will go ahead and grab that right hand. So I've got all of them selected right now, but I haven't selected the bar or the other hand. Let's group them together because they'll stay together. So I'll go up to Object and Group. And now it's its own thing and I can turn off visibility on all of it, or I can go into it and turn off visibility on part of it. And if you follow, you know, fastidious rules for how to really do these things, I'll double click on where it says group and I'll label you right hand. So later it's easy to find and parse information through this to get to what I need. Little bit short on time, so I'm just going to barely touch on the text tool. This program is fairly large. There's plenty of more to do, but this is a good little intro. So if you grab T for text, you can click and you have your text and you can type in, you know, hand washing. And then if you switch back to the select tool, you get a bounding box for it, which allows you to transform it. So, you know, like you can, make it active and click to make it bigger. Or you can start rotating. It's like right here would be a corner. I could rotate it if I wanted, or whatever I need to do. Just know that the control is there. And then if you're at all familiar with normal text editing and like Microsoft Word or Apple Pages, if you go up to Window, why is it always so hard to find? Type and go to Character. And then go to, of course, because they hide it, show options. You have all of your character options right here for what you're used to being able to have access to. So, you know, I can click onto here and have it selected again. I could be like, I want bold, or, you know, I need to drop my tracking down to condense the text, or if I want, you know, if I want low all caps or high caps, or if I want subscript or whatever, just know that it's in the character window. We don't have enough time to really get in depth into the character window, but know that this is where it's hiding. So again, window character, window type character. So let's say that this was done and I was ready to have it on the internet or for print. I need to make it not an Illustrator file. First though, I am going to save an Illustrator file. So I'll go up to File and I will just click Save. It will be like, yo, where do you want this thing? And I'll be like, this spot is fine. And it'll be like, whatever you put in at the start, .ai, Adobe Illustrator, and you click Save and you have your Illustrator file. If you get this window, the default's fine, just click OK. So now I can close and come back to this at any point, and I'll still have access to anything that's over here in my layers. Just know that if you won't be able to hit Command Undo to undo things anymore once you close it and reopen it. As long as you've never closed it, you always can hit Undo. Now to make this something available for other people, so like to convert it into a raster file, for instance, you'll go to File, Export, and then you can do Export for Screens or Export As. It's not too big of a deal. I'll do Export As. And you have all these options in here. So PNG, so let's say I wanted to not have this white background, because it's not actually white, it's transparent, kind of what you're seeing behind this G right here. I would send it out as a PNG. PNG support transparency. When should you use PNG? You should use PNG when you need transparency, or when you need something that's not square, or if you are making like little icon logo things for the internet. PNG is a large format. Like it's got a lot, it takes up a lot of space. So it's not very good for sharing unless you need a couple of those little requirements. It also supports 16-bit color, but most people's screens aren't going to support it. So I don't really worry about it. Bitmap, almost never going to need to use. You're not going to use CSS. AutoCAD drawing is a way to output this as something like a CAD program can understand for like setting up, tool directions. Again, very unusual that you'll be using these AutoCAD formats. Flash, Flash is fairly dead at this point, so I don't know if you'll ever end up using that. JPEG is the one that you'll use for sharing on the internet. And the reason why we use JPEG is because it's small and it's fast and it plays nice with everyone. So if you need to send this to somebody on the internet, you pick JPEG, you click Export. It asks you a couple of questions about it. Usually you want to set this to 10. There's not really a lot of reason to make it look worse. Resolution 72 is fine for the internet. You click OK and it will spit out a JPEG wherever you told it to. Let's take a look at a couple other ones real quick. Photoshop file, if you're going to be sending this to Photoshop. The other one that you want to note is TIFF. So if this is going to be a file that you care a lot about it looking good when you're going to send it off to a professional printer, you'd send them a TIFF file because it has much better color information than a JPEG and is openable and editable to them, unlike an Illustrator file unless they're familiar with Illustrator. So TIFF is what you send to high-end printers. Although if you're sending it out for mass market printing, you'll probably send out a PDF instead. SVG, so let's say I was using this to draw tool paths for the laser cutter at DoSpace. SVG is a fine format to save stuff for laser cutter tool head paths, or like Glowforge is what we'll use SVGs more than the other ones. Click cancel. So we can also go up to File and Save As to save it as other file types than Illustrator that allow us to still have access to some of this stuff. So like EPS, encapsulated PostScript file, is a legacy format for printing, so you probably won't ever use this guy. PDF, universally openable, supports a bunch of really important core features. Not something we're going to get into the detail wise, but like PDF is, if you're really worried about somebody being able to open it and it looking good, like you're sending it to your boss or somebody, PDF is a fairly good file format to be sending it out as. And then SVG, again, basically is the way to save it as a vector file that's shareable. So like some internet browsers now are supporting SVGs. Let's say you have a nice little logo, but it needs to stretch and change size dynamically because you have a dynamic website. SVG can be a really good option for that. Or if you're sending it to somebody that doesn't have Adobe Illustrator, they've got Inkscape. SVG plays nice with Inkscape. There's some conversion issues between the two, but SVG is your best bet. All right, so we've got about 10 minutes left. Do we have any questions, or should I start moving through some other topics and stuff that we can get into for this program? I'll give you guys a minute or two to type a couple up, and if we don't have any, I'll go ahead and move on to some of the other tools that we have access to. Also gives me a chance to enjoy my coffee. It's getting cold. All right, so let's take a closer look at those paths that we made. So I'm going to zoom in, Command plus, Control plus on your keyboard. Grab Mr. Spacebar to get in the hand. I'm going to click and drag up. And by the way, just because I'm talking doesn't mean that you can't ask any questions, by the way. And let's say that I wanted to move one of these points. So a really quick and easy way to move one of those points is to grab the Direct Select tool. And I can click on any one of these lines to select just that line, which allows me to move that line if I wanted to. Or I could click again on one of the points to make it active. So notice the point up here is white, the point down here is blue, so that's my active point. So now if I click and drag on it, I can move this point around, which is really handy. Or let's say I didn't want to figure out, so there's this line right here, and I didn't want to figure out which part of it was over here in my layers. I can grab my Direct Select tool and I can click on that line. Now I can hit the delete key to get rid of it. Notice that it didn't delete the points, so I still have my 2 points. So I would need to hit delete a second time to have a clean workspace. And the reason why that happened when I did that is I clicked on the line, so the line was active, the path, but the anchor points weren't. So delete, delete in order to get rid of that guy fully. All right. So we talked about making these guys from scratch, but we also have a bunch of these that come pre-built. So let's say I just needed like a quick rectangle. We move down our list. We have text, we have line. For if I wanted to draw a line, it's pretty much exactly the same thing as doing this with the pen tool. Excuse me, except you have arc if you really wanted to draw an arc in there. The one that we really want to look at though is the shape tool. So if I click, it will ask me how big of a rectangle I want to make. So I can say like 2 by 2 and it spits out a 2 inch by 2 inch rectangle. Or I can click and drag to make my own. And notice that when I get it just right, I get a little purple line going through it. That's telling me that it's square, like it's equal on all 4 sides. Otherwise, I can drag it out and snap onto other areas with the purple line if I don't want it to be perfectly square. If I want it to be perfectly square and I'm bad at lining that up, if I hold down the Shift key, it makes it perfectly square for me, very handy. And if I want to draw it from the center, if I hold down the Alt key, it draws from the center where I clicked rather than the top left corner from where I clicked. When I release and I go back into the Select tool, and let's zoom in on this guy, notice how I get these little dots in the corners. This is for if I want to round these corners. So I can click and drag on that little dot, and I get a nice little attractive rounding effect for some nice like Web 2.0, welcome to design in the 2000s appearance. So like, or if I was gonna like a bathroom sign. I can also manually control that up here in the options bar where there I've got this nice little arc. I can also change the shape of the arc by picking a different drop down. I could also manually enter it in as a 1/2 inch corner point. Very neat, very handy. If I click and hold on the rectangle, I get all of the usual tools. I accidentally moved my ellipse tool into my, down there, I had mother moving it back. But just like with the square tool, if I click and drag, I get this guy. If I'm good, I can get it so it comes out as a perfect circle, or I can just hold Shift to get the perfect circle. If I want to draw from the center again, I just hold down Alt. Like with anything else, I can use my Select tool to drag and move this guy around. And notice as I drag and move this guy around, I can even see center, telling me I'm dropping it into the center of this shape. You know what? Let's group these 2 guys together. I'm going to hit Now that I've got them both selected, so I had empty space, clicked and dragged with the select tool, I'm going to hit Command G or Control G, or you can go up to Object Group, and it will put the two of them together. So you can see it right here now, up here in my layers. Command 0 to zoom out, or Control 0. And let's say I wanted this perfectly centered in my poster. So if I click and drag on it, you can see that it starts trying to grab onto the stuff from the hands, and it's not going to be fun to try to get this centered. So this is where I can use the built-in alignment tools. So right here, I've got the built-in alignment tools. If I click on right here, I can say align to a selection, align to a key object, or align to an artboard. I want to put this in the center of my artboard, so I'll do align to artboard. I click center, and I click center, and like magic, it is centered for me. I can also do it based on different points and sides by clicking on different spots right here. So let's say I wanted to do it based on one side and then slam it off to the side. Notice that it's going to line that edge up versus if I do that center point square in there and I click align to that edge. Usually, I wonder what I did wrong. Usually it will put the center in there. Anyway, you can also change the position based on typing it in. So if I wanted to put it into that perfect 0 point corner, I can put in 0 right here and 0 right here, and drops that corner perfectly into their center point. So if I pick the center point and I put in 0, 0, that's telling it that I want that center point in there perfectly as 0, 0. All right. Let's go ahead and wrap up there for the day. So again, whenever you're done, you'll always go and save your original Illustrator file, and then you can always go to export as to get out your JPEG for sharing on the internet. I hope this has been useful for you. That Dropbox links will stay good for at least a day or two. So if you want to download and play with this stuff, it's there for you to play with and look at. And good luck with Illustrator. It's a powerful, fun program.